Let's speak to Nthabiseng Dubazana, who is a legal practitioner from Dubazana Attorneys. A very warm welcome to you, Ms. Dubazana. Always a pleasure to see you here on SABC News.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're most welcome. Let's start here. I mean, so we have sort of finally some sort of attempt at giving or creating some sort of alibi. We're hearing from the accused, two of the accused, that we weren't even there to begin with. In fact, we were in KZN. How important is this? I mean, we have been saying all along that, okay, if you were not there and you were not on the scene of the crime, where in fact were you during that time? And now we're starting to hear, you know, some sort of alibi or story that is indeed being given around that. So let's talk about the importance of this.
It is quite important, like you correctly stated. In the past, we've been hearing that I wasn't present on the day in question, I wasn't at the house when the shooting happened, etc., etc. So now, at least for the first time, we're getting an idea of where the accused persons so far are alleging where they were on the day in question, what they were doing, which province that they were in. So as a result, that alibi will obviously have to be corroborated. So for right now, this version being put to the witnesses is simply hearsay until the accused himself comes to the dock and gives evidence. And hopefully there's a witness who's going to corroborate all of these things. And therefore we'll see just how much of any probative value or weight that these alibis are going to have with the presiding officer vis-a-vis the evidence that the state has achieved so far.
Yeah. Is it safe to say that, you know, there is doubt that might have been created at this point? And I note that you're saying, you know, we still have to get to the point where this alibi is corroborated, you know, by other witnesses, perhaps who had maybe even been with them in KZN. You've always said, you know, the standard of proof in criminal matters in this case is beyond reasonable doubt. But now we're seeing that, you know, some sort of doubt is being created, isn't it?
Very much so. So far, what we're hearing is a lot of circumstantial evidence, because as the witness has said himself under cross-examination, he's saying, I did not say that I saw the accused person shoot the deceased. What I'm saying is that they returned to their hostel, and upon their return, there were guns that were handed over to the owner of the hostel. There was changing of clothes, and they made an announcement that the deceased, well, has already died. This is before the news broke, and the following day, that's when they heard the news, confirming that Senzo had already passed. And when he connected the two dots, this is where now the circumstantial evidence is going to come around and play a very heavy role in proving the accused person's guilt in this situation.
And just speaking of that heavy role, you know, that his testimony has, I mean, Constable Zungu has remained quite adamant regarding what he has said, and he stuck to it, saying that he was with all the accused. You know, how do we weigh up what Constable Zungu is saying, you know, above what, you know, the accused are saying? You know, whose statements, you know, are going to weigh more, if I can put it that way, at the end of the day?
I think so far it's a little bit too early to tell. There's only been one cross-examination, and so far he stood his ground, like you said. So there was no real penetration by the deceased, I beg your pardon, the defense attorney in cross-examining at this stage. So far, I can say, just based on the current cross-examination, no penetration was done of the witness. So he didn't contradict himself in any manner or form. But we'll see as cross-examination continues, and once the state case is closed and then defense case is open, what kind of evidence they have hidden to kind of cancel out what has been said. The only downside or upside, depending how you look at it, would be the fact that he, unfortunately, in my opinion at least, was consuming alcohol at a well-known Gabi stroke hitman's place, and his gun was handed over to the owner of the place without proper decorum. For me, as a defense attorney, that's where I would start in trying to poke holes in his story.
Yeah, and then let's talk about, there's been much ado about these gestures that were made by accused number 5 towards Constable Zungu, where apparently, he made this allegedly. We saw, of course, he allegedly was making a gesture as of pointing a gun in a threatening manner. What weight, if any, does that carry in terms of how, the accused is behaving, even, in a courtroom situation?
The beauty of a justice system, especially our criminal justice system, is that when the presiding officer does eventually hand out a judgment in such a matter, if the judgment is that of guilty, he bases it on not only the interest of justice, the interest of the accused, and also the interest of the community, but he also makes consideration of the demeanor of the accused throughout the entire trial.
Right.
I can quote to you so many cases wherein the demeanor of the accused plays a heavier role, even if the evidence was, in the manner of speaking, supporting his case, but his demeanor and the way he conducted himself in court worked against him and found himself being found guilty as a result. So to answer your question, that it does play a significant role when judgment does come around.
And when we're talking about his demeanor and these sort of gestures that accused number 5 was making, one might ask the question, if the accused claim that they are being framed as they have, why do we have record of them, threatening witnesses like we have now, especially, witnesses that they claim that, they don't even know?
That is a very interesting aspect to look at. This is why circumstantial evidence plays such a heavy role in most criminal matters. So the demeanor and all these other factors that are coming around the situation, even if there's no concrete evidence that can link the accused persons to the actual murder, but the fact that these little things that keep coming up may just find them being found guilty. And also looking at their previous records as well, because some of them, if I'm not mistaken, are serving time for murder, for armed robbery. These are crimes that are related to the one that they're facing today. Yeah. So these things may not work in their benefit going forward.
Yeah, it's not looking very good for the defense at the moment. I mean, I think earlier on, a lot of people are quite convinced that, these gentlemen might have in fact been framed for this particular situation. And of course, a lot of us had kind of anticipated that, more needs to be done and dug, around the people that were inside the house. But, it's starting to look more possible that the accused do have something to answer for.
If there's one thing I've learned in our line of profession, is that truth is stranger than fiction. And indeed, what we are seeing is that the story that has been around, that indeed the 7 people who were in the house probably were the ones who committed the crime, now has to dwindle a little bit. And the defense now has a lot of work ahead of them to try and make sure that the accused persons are found not guilty as a result. I think this witness that was giving evidence today, Constable Zungu, his evidence is going to be significant because he knew these people prior to him arresting them. Yeah. All the other witnesses was as a result of arresting them and see them at a lineup, etc., etc. He's known them for quite some time. So even if he was drunk in some manner or form, he can still point out who was there, who wasn't there. That's why I'm saying the only thing that I think the defense can play on is why he was in a place that is well known, that where crimes can be committed and he was consuming alcohol there. That would be my line of departure during cross-examination.
All right. It's always great having you. Unfortunately, we're out of time there. Nthabiseng Dubazana, who is a legal practitioner with the Dubazana Attorneys.